Narayanam namaskritya Naram chaiva narottamam Devim sarasvatim vyasam Tato chayam mudirayet Mukam karoti vachalam Pangum langayate girim Yatkripatamaham vande Shigurum dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanyamishwaram. So we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 4. Ambarish Maharaj attended by Durvasa Muni. And we will read verses 2 up to 16. There are a few short purports, so we'll read those. Basically, we will finish the narrative of Nabhaga, the father of Maharaja Ambarish, which we discussed yesterday. And then we will move on to the first verse describing Maharaja Ambarish. The idea is to discuss about Maharaja Ambarish character, and particularly since the main teaching of this section is the importance of avoiding sadhu ninda, offenses to the devotees. I would like to explore a little bit this topic, because it's actually, I'm sure it's a topic that we'll be exploring in the next days, but still it is so important that cannot be overemphasized. We sing verse number 2. Brataro bhakta kim mayam
Bhataro bhakta kim mayam
bhajama pitaram tava
Vajama pitaram tava
tvam mamaryas tata bhangshu
Mamayas tata bhangshu
ma putraka tadadritaha
Maputra tadadrita
Brataro bhakta kim mahyam
Bhataro bhakta kim mayam
bhajama pitaram tava
Vajama pitaram tava
tvam mamaryas tata bhangshu
Mamayas tata bhangshu
ma putraka tadadritaha
Maputra tadadrita
Brataro bhakta kim mayam
Bhataro bhakta kim mayam
bhajama pitaram tava
Vajama pitaram tava
tvam mamaryas tata bhangshu
Mamayas tata bhangshu
ma putraka tadadritaha
Maputra tadadrita
Brataro bhakta kim mayam
Brataro bhakta kim mayam
Vajama pitaram tava
bhajama pitaram tava
Dhamma maryas tata bhangshu
Mamayas tata bhangshu
Maputra tadadrita
Maputra tadadrita
Brataro bhakta kim mahyam
Bhataro bhakta kim mayam
Vajama pitaram tava
Vajama pitaram tava
Vammamayas tata bhangshu
Mamayas tata bhangshu
Maputra tadadritaha
Maputra tadadrita Bhataro bhakta kim mayam
Brataro bhakta kim mahyam
Vajama pitaram tava
Vajama pitaram tava
Vammamayas tata bhangshu
Vammamayas tata bhangshu
Maputra tadadrita
Maputra tadadrita
Brataro bhakta kim mayam
Bhataro bhakta kim mayam
bhajama pitaram tava
Vajama pitaram tava
tvam namaya tata bhangshu
mamaryas tata bhangshu
ma putraka tadadritaha
Maputra tadadrita
Srila Prabhupada's translation and purports. Bratara, O my brothers,
O my brothers,
Abhangta, have you given us the share of our father's property? Kim, what? Mayam, unto me. Bhajama, we allot. Pitaram, the father himself. Tava, as your share. Tvam, you. Mama, unto me. Aryaha, my elder brothers. Tata, O my father. Abhangshu, have given the share. Ma, do not. Putraka, O my dear son. Tat, to this statement. Adritaha, give any importance. Translation. Nabhaga inquired, my dear brothers, what have you given to me as my share of our father's property? his elder brothers answered, "We have kept our father as your share." But when Nabaga went to his father and said, "My dear father, my elder brothers have given you as my share of property," the father replied, "My dear son, do not rely upon their cheating words. I am not your property." Ime angira cha satram asateria sumedasaha shastam upetyaha kave muhyanti karmani. Nabaga's father said, "All the descendants of Angira are now going to perform a great sacrifice, but although they are very intelligent, on every sixth day they will be bewildered in performing sacrifice and will make mistakes in their daily duties." Purport. Nabaga was very simple-hearted. Therefore, when he went to his father, the father, in compassion for his son, suggested that as a means of livelihood, Nabaga could go to the descendants of Angira and take advantage of their misgivings in performing yagya. Tamstvam shamsaya surte dve vaishvadeve mahatmanaha tesvaryanto dhanam satra parisheshitamatmanaha dasyanti te tan archa tatha sakritavan yatha tasmai datva jayusvargam tesatra parisheshanam. Nabaga's father continued, "Go to those great souls and describe 2 Vedic hymns pertaining to Vaishvadeva. When the great sages have completed the sacrifice and are going to the heavenly planets, they will give you the remnants of the money they have received from the sacrifice. Therefore, go there immediately." Thus, Nabaga acted exactly according to the advice of his father, and the great sages of the Angira dynasty gave him all their wealth, and then went to the heavenly planets. Tam kaschit svikarishyantam purusha krishna darshanaha vachotarato bhyetya maniram vastukam vasu. Thereafter, while Nabaga was accepting the riches, a black-looking person from the north came to him and said, "All the wealth from this sacrificial arena belongs to me." Mamedam rishipir datam iditarkis mamamaraha syannaute pitari prashna prishtavan pitaram yatha. Nabaga then said, "These riches belong to me. The great saintly persons have delivered them to me." When Nabaga said this, the black-looking person replied, "Let us go to your father and ask him to settle our disagreement." In accordance with this, Nabaga inquired from his father, "Yagyavastu gatam sarvam uchishtam rishaya kvachit chakurhi bhagam rudraya sadeva sarvamarkhati." The father of Nabaga said, "Whatever the great sages sacrificed in the arena of the Dakshayagya they offer to Lord Shiva as his share. Therefore, everything in the sacrificial arena certainly belongs to Lord Shiva. Nabhagastam pranamyaka tavesha kila vastukam ityaha me pita brahman chirasatvam prasadaye. Thereupon, after offering obeisances to Lord Shiva, Nabhaga said, O worshipable Lord, everything in this arena of sacrifice is yours. This is the assertion of my father. Now, with great respect, I bow my head before you, begging your mercy. Yatte pita vadattarmam tvam cha satyam prabhashase dadami te mantradrisho gyanam brahma sanatanam. Lord Shiva said, whatever your father has said is the truth, and you also are speaking the same truth. Therefore, I, who know the Vedic mantras, shall explain transcendental knowledge to you. Briharna dravinam datam matsatra parisheshitam ityukvan tarhito rudro bhagavan dharma vatsalaha. Lord Shiva said, now you may take all the wealth remaining from the sacrifice, for I give it to you. After saying this, Lord Shiva, who is most adherent to the religious principles, disappeared from that place. Yaetat samsmarit prata sayam cha susamahitaha kavir bhavati mantragyo gatim chaiva tatatmanaha. If one hears and chants or remembers this narration in the morning and evening with great attention, he certainly becomes learned, experienced in understanding the Vedic hymns, and expert in self-realization. So this is the Shruti Pala, the result, the blessing given by hearing these teachings. Na bhagat ambarisho pun maha bhagavata kriti nashprishat brahmachapopi yamna prati katakvache. From Nabhaga, Maharaja Ambarish took birth. Maharaja Ambarish was an exalted devotee, celebrated for his great merits. Although he was cursed by an infallible Brahmana, the curse could not touch him. Shri Rajo Vacha Bhagavan Shrotumichami Rayarshes Tasya Dhimata Napraput Yatra Nirmukto Pramadando Turatyayaha. King Parikshit inquired, O great personality, Maharaja Ambarish was certainly most exalted and meritorious in character. I wish to hear about him. How surprising it is that the curse of a Brahmana, which is insurmountable, could not act upon him. Shri Shuka Uvacha Ambarisho Mahabhaga Saptadvi Pavatim Mahim Avyayam Cha Shriyam Labdva pipavam chatulam bhuvi meneti durlabham pumsam sarvam tat svapna samstutam vidvam vipava nirvanam tamo vishati yat puman. Shukadeva Goswami said, Maharaja Ambarish, the most fortunate personality, achieved the rule of the entire world, consisting of 7 islands, and achieved inexhaustible, unlimited opulence and prosperity on earth. Although such a position is rarely obtained, Maharaja Ambarish did not care for it at all, for he knew very well that all such opulence is material. Like that which is imagined in a dream, such opulence will ultimately be destroyed. The king knew that any non-devotee who attains such opulence merges increasingly into material nature's mode of darkness. Purport. For a devotee, material opulence is insignificant, whereas for a non-devotee, material opulence is the cause of increasing bondage. For a devotee knows that anything material is temporary, whereas a non-devotee regards the temporary so-called happiness as everything and forgets the path of self-realization. Thus, for the non-devotee, material opulence is a disqualification for spiritual advancement. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Vishadari. I don't know, there is a paper here. I'm just reading it because I just happened to see it. I guess it's a message to him. I don't know if to the speaker or to His Holiness Yadunandana Goswami Maharaja. And excuse me, but I'll share it and I'll say something about it, which is connected actually to today's verse. Chanting for peace is offensive because we're asking Krishna to serve our material desire for peace. Rather than chanting Hare Krishna for peace, we should chant to see reality and get out of the illusion that we should chant for peace. Rather than chanting Hare Krishna for peace, we should chant to see reality and get out of the illusion that we should chant for peace.
Who wrote this?
I don't know, it was here on the verse.
Put that in there for you.
I think because last night I did mention in the Bhagavad Gita class, I mentioned what the ISKCON Continental Committee from the leaders discussed with His Holiness Yadunandana Goswami Maharaj, and so I guess somebody didn't like that, or thinks he or she knows better.
There's somebody on the higher transcendental platform that they're chanting 24 hours a day, bring out of peace in China, and purifying the whole universe. Everyone else is not chanting at all, and let the war go on. You know, people write this sort of thing, but they're not even chanting most of the time. It's just a comment, you know. You know, if you were in the middle of Ukraine, Kiev right now, you know, what will you think? No, we're just chanting for pure love of God. Sure we are, but I'm not sure we are.
Yeah,
How
actually,
really are we sacrificing our lives for Srila Prabhupada? We're just worried about our own body half the time, our own mental trips. Sacrifice. Okay, it's a lowly thing, but you know, we're on a lowly level. If we're still thinking about our sense gratification, we're not even practicing devotional service. Just a facade. You know, wake up. I don't know who wrote that.
yes, so with your permission, Maharaja, I will say something related to today's verse, because this section of the Bhagavatam is teaching us something very important. If we look at the character of Nabaga, yesterday we were discussing how he was a very simple-hearted, and he was accepting higher authority. He didn't question his elder brothers, even though they were cheating him. He didn't question his father. He didn't question Lord Shiva. He accepted higher authority. And intelligently, he surrendered to them. It is not that he was, somebody could say, he was a fool. Somebody who, like the person who wrote this, maybe thinking in those terms. Oh, he was a foolish person who was surrendering to higher authority and so on. But actually, he was very intelligently understanding what was the meaning of the Vedic teachings, so much so that the Srimad Bhagavatam, who is non different from Krishna, gives the blessing that if somebody remembers this narrative of Nabaga in the morning and the evening with great attention, certainly that person will become learned, will become experienced in understanding the Vedic hymns and expert in self-realization. Srila Prabhupada in his books repeatedly explains that the meaning of the Vedas, the ultimate purpose of the Vedas, is to know Krishna. Vedaischa sarvairahameva vedyo. This is the meaning of the Vedas. And to know Krishna means to know also Krishna's devotees. We cannot approach Krishna without serving the devotees. And this is actually the teaching we learn from the next section you are going to be studying in the next days. Maharaj Ambarish character. Maharaj Ambarish character became the son of Nabaga. So actually Nabaga was blessed, even though he had been stolen from all the property of the father, his share of the property, by his brothers, but then he was given a son who became a great devotee, Mahabharata, very, very advanced devotee. And his son became the emperor of the whole world. Details are not given here. Maybe in some of the Shastra, I don't know. You can find details how Maharaj Ambarish became the emperor. But here it is described. He came to become so opulent, which was very rarely seen, such opulence. And he was such a great soul that even though he had so much opulence, he was not affected by it. He was completely detached, and he had the spirit of serving sadhus. So much so that, this we were mentioning yesterday, when Durvasa Muni offended him, he took offense for something there was no offense actually, because Maharaj Ambarish very carefully wanted to avoid offending the sage. When the sage went to take a bath while the prasadam was being prepared for him, Durvasa Muni was that yogi. So Maharaj Ambarish didn't want to eat before his guest, even though he had to break his fast timely for the Dwadashi Brata. So he asked the Brahmanas what to do. Sometimes we find ourselves in situations that we don't know what to do. And even sometimes we say, what to do, isn't it? Don't we say many times, what to do, like we are damned if you do, damned if you don't. We are at crossroads many times in life. But by the way, everybody is understanding or somebody needs translation into French? Of course, if somebody needs translation, yes, Mataji needs translation, like last night she needed. Somebody can translate for her? Yesterday somebody was translating, I said, in Bhagavad Gita class, so simultaneous. Can somebody do? Or? She will translate? Yeah. Yes, okay. Thank you. So, where? What? Sorry about that. Can you help me? The last point. Who was listening?
Last thing I remember was about Ambarish Maharaj, the opulences he got.
Yes. The opulence Maharaja Ambarish had was very rarely seen, and he was not affected by it. So Nabhaga got that blessing of having such a son, that even if we will argue, somebody could argue, well, maybe Nabhaga was not so advanced. Somebody could argue, like put a paper on the and argue that maybe Nabhaga was not so advanced. But even if for the sake of arguing, we take that statement, Nabhaga got the blessing to get a Mahabhagavata as his son, which that will mean he will go back to Godhead, because many generations from a Mahabhagavat go back to Godhead. So therefore he was actually, the Lord reciprocated with his attitude of service to the devotees. And this is the principle we learn from Maharaj Ambarish, that Maharaj Ambarish, even though he was the one who was being offended by Durvasa, because he took offense when Maharaj Ambarish had done the right thing, which was to consult to the Brahmanas. And the Brahmanas advised him, you can break your fast by drinking water, because according to Shastra, if you drinking water can be considered non-breaking the fast or breaking the fast. So they thought this was the proper, you will not be eating before your guest, and still you will be completing your vow properly. Because you had, your fast was dry. When you drink water, you are breaking the fast of the dry fast. But yet you are not eating before your exalted guest. And he did the right thing. But then Durvasa Muni somehow got offended by that, and then created a demon who will be destroying Maharaj Ambarish. That was his intention. But the Lord always protects his devotees. So the Lord sent his Sudarshana Chakra. And the Sudarshana Chakra killed the demon and started to chase Durvasa Muni, who had to suffer the being persecuted by the Chakra of the Lord for 1 full year. He was traveling all over the universe, trying to take shelter of all the authorities. He went up to Vaikuntha. Somehow he got there, maybe at the door, so like he got there. And when he took shelter of the Lord said, I'm sorry, I cannot do anything for you. You have to go to the devotee you have offended and get his mercy. Then you will be okay. But if you offend my devotee, you're offending what is more dear to my heart. I cannot do anything about it. So this important lesson cannot be, as we were saying in the beginning, cannot be overemphasized. Basically speaking, by committing offenses to devotees, even unconsciously, we have to be accountable for that. This will have some consequences. Like in the case of Maharaja Ambarish, from the symptoms described here, was situated at the level of, at least at the level of Bhava Bhakti, Prema Bhakti. Because he was detached, he had so much opulence that he was completely detached from it. And even though he was not externally giving it up, but he was using everything for the service of the Lord and the devotees. We find the example of Bharata Maharaj. He's also described as a Bhava Bhakta. Srila Prabhupada mentions in Nectar of Devotion, describing the symptoms of a person who possesses ecstatic love for Krishna. Bharata Maharaj is mentioned as he abandoned his kingdom as if it was stool, untouchable stool. Like when nobody gets a problem of getting rid from urine and stool. Actually, we feel relief by doing so. So Bharata Maharaj was also very advanced devotee, but because he committed, even unconsciously, for sure he was not conscious of it, but unconsciously he committed the offense of thinking that I can serve the Lord without the association of devotees. You could say, okay, but why you say, where it is said that Bharata Maharaj committed an offense? We never heard this expressed explicitly. But when we read Srila Prabhupada's explanation of the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Sri Rupa Goswami about the creeper of bhakti, there are some purports where Srila Prabhupada explains that if we abandon the society of devotees, we are committing an offense. So it is not for sure Bharata Maharaj was such an advanced soul. He just wanted to get absorbed in his bhajan. But still there is some, especially in the present situation, there is still some element of offense that we are not valuing sufficiently the company of the devotees. What to speak if we are putting them down? That actually we are destroying our devotional creeper. And therefore Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has called this the first offense, the first nama aparadha, described in the Padma Purana, Satam Ninda, Sadhu Ninda, malice towards the sadhus. Malice means the polluted, envious attitude towards the sadhus, that I will say something or do something in order to harm them. If I do that, I'm going to be destroyed. In the case of Bharata Maharaj, the level of the word of thanks. There was no ill intention. There was no ninda in Bharata Maharaj heart. But still there was some element of not valuing the devotees. And therefore he had to come back 2 more lifetimes. By the will of the Lord, he was protected. He was a devotee with pure consciousness, and therefore the Lord protected him. And even in the body of an animal, of the deer, he was able to remember what happened in the previous lifetime. And then he was remembering the Lord and searching for purification from that condition. And then in the next lifetime as Yadabharata, he just pretended to be a crazy fellow, and he was in his heart remembering the Lord, but very carefully he will avoid offenses to the Vaishnavas. So actually this is the first principle of devotion, as Srila Narottam Das Thakur states, and this is very much quoted by Srila Prabhupada, Chariya Vaishnava Seva Nishtara Payeche Keva. Who has attained devotional service without serving the devotees of the Lord? And we get the taste for hearing and chanting about Krishna by serving the devotees. Shushrusho Shradhadanasya Vasudeva Kataruchi Syamahat Sevaya Vipra Punyatirtha Nisevana. Great service is done when we serve the devotees, and the result of it is Vasudeva Kataruchi. We get the taste for hearing about Krishna, for chanting about him. So what to speak then of doing the opposite? If we do the opposite, we get the opposite result. If we have any taste and we offend devotees, the taste is curtailed, is destroyed. Therefore we need to be very, very careful. And of course there may be many nuances in terms of how does the principle of the Vaishnava Aparadha applies. Like for example, if we offend, Srila Prabhupada writes in Nectar of Devotion, if we offend a devotee who is more advanced, the reaction will be heavier. We will lose more of the taste. If the offense is heavier, like the physical offense is heavier than the verbal offense, which is heavier than the mental offense. So there may be many details, but still the principle applies the same for each and every one, even for those who are very advanced. According to Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur, in his book Madhurya Kadambini, when he analyzes the 4 types of anarthas, there are anarthas coming from sinful activities. This is one group. Another group is anarthas coming from material pious activities, like this fellow was trying to argue, you are doing material pious activities and using the holy name for material piety. This is what the fellow was arguing. But actually, the higher principle is to obey the Vaishnavas. That's a higher principle than to be right and to be argumentative. To serve the Vaishnavas. If the authorities say, you pray for peace, you pray for peace. And our founder Acharya many times says, Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. It's even film. We want everyone to be happy. And in many Vedic mantras, how the Vedic mantras end? Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. May there be peace, peace and peace. So this is the Vedic tradition. Why we don't want peace for our own sake. We want peace, the peace of Krishna consciousness, that everybody can serve the Lord. This is the peace devotees want. To assume that when devotees pray for peace, they want karma kanda, maybe assuming too much. Maybe thinking oneself to be the Paramatma who knows what devotees are thinking in the heart. Anyway, I just wanted to make the statement on the basis of Shastra, because just to shut up and let it go, I don't think it's proper. So the point is that the highest principle is to serve devotees and to avoid offending them. And going back to what Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur explains, the third group of anarthas is those coming from bhakti improperly performed. So normally we could say these are seva aparadas, offenses we commit in the temple service. Sometimes we do things, and or else due to impurity, not only we do things externally which are improper, but due to our impure consciousness, because we are not pure bhaktas, so in terms of we are still practitioners, so we didn't reach the stage of Shuddha Sattva, Bhava stage, so naturally we make mistakes in performing devotional service. And there are anarthas coming from that. We read from Srila Prabhupada's books that when the seva paradas are counteracted by chanting the holy name of the Lord without offenses. But if we commit offenses to the holy name of the Lord, then we cannot, unless we rectify whatever offenses we commit, following the proper methods. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur speaks about them in his book Harinama Chintamani, how to rectify each of the 10 offenses to the holy names. And the first one of them is sadhu ninda, offenses to the devotees. So if we commit offenses to the devotees, even if we are at the stage of bhava or prema bhakti, according to the estimation of Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur, we will be affected. Even if only externally, because our consciousness is pure, there is no malice, there is no ninda. It was an offense which was done without willingness, without ill intention, but still there was an offense. So therefore, and we hear in Vrindavan, I don't have the source for that, but we heard it, we have heard from different senior speakers, how Srila Rupa Goswami one time that he was singing his bhajan, he was singing the lila of the Lord, of Sri Radha Krishna and the Sakis, and he was having great ecstasy while singing the lila. And one Vaishnava felt offended because he thought that Sri Rupa Goswami was laughing at him. And when he went to ask Sanatana Goswami for help, because somehow his ecstasy had been curtailed, and even though he was doing the same bhajan, he was performing, he couldn't enter again into that divine vision and ecstasy. So he approached his spiritual master, Sanatana Goswami. And Sanatana Goswami, the first question, like when going to the doctor, the first question he asked him, did you commit any offense to a Vaishnava? And Sri Rupa Goswami said, I don't remember having any conflict with any Vaishnava. I always am very careful about that. I don't not that they know. So then Sanatana Goswami gave him a formula. Okay, do one thing. You organize a festival and you invite all the Vaishnavas of Vrindavan. And then the Vaishnava who is not coming, maybe the Vaishnava he felt offended, then you can go and talk to him and find out if there was something you did that make him feel hurt. And then you make up and solve it in whatever way. So, and he found that this Vaishnava who was disabled was working in a way which was different from people who have their health in their bodily in their senses. So this Vaishnava then revealed what had happened, and everything was solved, and they embraced, and everything was fine again. But the point is that even someone very advanced is affected by doing something unconsciously. Also, Maharaj Chitraketu, according to Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur, was at the stage of Prema Bhakti, and he had to take birth as Vritrasura, as a demon. He was cursed because only one person took offense. So we need to stop the fire. The fire has to be stopped. If we don't stop the fire, and like Krishna swallowed the forest fire, according to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, the forest fire and Krishna extinguishing the forest fire represents fighting among devotees. And this may mean devotees of different denominations as well. That's included. Within, what to speak of the same denomination, if we fight at home, but all the fighting has to stop. Otherwise, if we don't do that, then we find destruction. It's very, very bad. Not good. So anyway, I thought to speak about that because it is such an important topic. And it's the lila, the main teaching of this chapter is this. So therefore we thought to introduce the topic, and naturally you will be discussing in the next days. Any comments or questions are most welcome. Maharaj?
Thank you, Maharaj. Interesting, one time Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj was with his disciples, I think it was in Puri. And the devotee, anyone's been to Puri, Vrindavan, there are many beggars in the street. And sometimes, they're living in the Dham, whatever it may be. You may give them some rupee or something. So when the devotee asked Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj, should everything be used in the service of Krishna? Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj said yes. But he said, it depends on your attitude. He said, if you don't have this mood of giving and not this mood of compassion for others, your heart will become hard. And you will not actually progress in your spiritual life. Hard-heartedness is not a symptom of a Vaishnava. We may be right theoretically, but it's not the symptom of a Vaishnava. Prabhupada was crying for the suffering of kids who were not getting food. I saw him crying. He wasn't even thinking of, get them to chant. He was just pained. In Hyderabad, we all know, the situation there. It's the mood of a Vaishnava. Prahlad Maharaj, very famous person, Bhagavatam. Svastyastu vishvasya kalapasidatam jayantu bhutanam shivam manasya vadram vajatatam areshatam no matyavapyavitaki. May there be good fortune throughout the universe, and may all envious persons be pacified. May all living entities become calm by practicing Bhakti Yoga, for by accepting devotional service, they will think of each other's welfare. Therefore, let us all engage in the service of the Supreme Transcendence, Lord Sri Krishna, and always remain absorbed in thought of Him. The interest in this verse comes after another verse, which is one directed towards our own hearts. You know, charity begins at home, you know, peace in our own hearts. And Prabhupada describes this as the attitude of a Vaishnava. He always thinks of the welfare of the entire universe. Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Dharma are meant for persons who are completely free of envy. Therefore, Prahlad Maharaj prays in this verse, Kalapasidatam. May all the envious persons be pacified. The material world is full of envious persons. But if one frees himself of envy, he becomes liberal in his social dealings and can think of others' welfare. You mentioned Sanatana Goswami and how he used to go around Vrindavan with great concern about even the family economic problems that the local residents were undergoing. He wasn't just preaching to them, you're not your body. Prabhupada in Hyderabad said, what's the use of all this philosophizing? People are starving. There's no rain. They can't understand a thing when they're in that situation. Therefore we should pray to Lord Nrsimhadev to sit in our hearts. We should pray, Bahir Nrsimho, Hidaye Nrsimho, let Lord Nrsimhadev sit in the core of my heart, killing all my bad propensities. Let my mind become clean, so that I may peacefully worship the Lord and bring peace to the world. So even if we philosophically, we may be right, in the absolute sense is correct, but our own hearts are still dirty. Our own hearts are still dirty, so it's cleansing of our own hearts, then maybe we can start thinking in terms of what's best for others. Prahlad Maharaj thus requested the Lord to be merciful to everyone, including his father, a most envious person. Therefore Prahlad Maharaj prays that all envious persons may undergo a change of heart and think of the welfare of others. How else on the planet will people become peaceful in the real sense of the term, or benefited if there's not a mass mission of Sankirtan? There's no other way. We can sit here a million years and philosophize. It won't do any good to no one. We've got to get on with the yogya. Whatever the causes are, whatever level of maturity we're on, the performance of the Sankirtan yoga is our God-given duty. Therefore, Prahlad Maharaj prays that everyone's mind may become gentle by being fixed at the lotus feet of Krishna, as indicated elsewhere in Srimad Bhagavatam, and as advised by Lord Krishna in Gita. No doubt the highest goal is to bring transcendent solution to all, but in the interim stage to try to help, let's say, people to develop some faith. Even Prabhupada writes in the Bhagavad Gita, if you can perform devotional service, then follow the rules, work for Krishna, and then he says, if you can't even do that, then at least give some charity to a hospital or something or another. Do something useful, even if it's mundane. It's gradual stages. So a Vaishnava is always thinking of how to put whole Varnashram system is based on that, how to gradually elevate people in their consciousness. You can't just impose on everybody, boom, highest transcendence. So the the idea is to bring genuine change of consciousness. That's the idea. There's no peace in this world. There's no such thing. But because people relate to that, let everyone chant the holy name of Krishna. If that's what they want. And this will change the consciousness.
Thank you very much, Maharaj. Very enlightening words. Any other comments or questions?
Okay, so let's see, there's three kinds of devotees, very elevated, medium, and kanista. Isn't it a little human just to avoid those who are envious of you and criticize? You know, sometimes I can pray for them, but sometimes I just don't want to see them. So, you know, a community, you know, it's which kind of devotees we want to be around, you know. Sometimes the community, we have all kinds of devotees and some strange devotees. So, what to do? Avoid them, pray for them, or alternate.
What to do? I'm not sure I understood the question. Like, you mentioned about the human, sometimes we feel like associating more with some devotees than with others, that's what you mean? You mean that sometimes we feel like associating more with some devotees than with others? Well, that's natural. We associate with like-minded devotees. That's in one sense, but doesn't mean that we disrespect or others. Like, that's natural. We have some friends who are more close to us. That's not a problem. Any other comments or questions?
You mentioned that without association we cannot advance spiritually. Also that if we offend devotees even slightly, we are impeded in our devotional advancement. So sometimes due to one's passionate nature or impure nature, the tendency to always, have friction or offend devotees or have not a correct behavior with devotees. For this person, is any case that he should keep? Maybe it's better for him to keep away from devotees for some time, or work on himself, or because also we say that we keep ourselves away from devotees, then we cannot advance. So what to do?
Yeah. I mean, if I want to be with devotees and offend them, maybe it's good to keep some this. It's less. We would say, I don't know if the English expression is correct. Less words. It's not that bad. Like to be somewhat distant without offending.
Moins pire, c'est le moins pire. Less worse.
Not so worse.
Not so worse.
Excuse me? Menos mal.
Moins pire.
So it is better to then keep distance than offending devotees, of course. But better is to come close to the devotees, to learn from them, to serve them, to care for them. That's much better, more pleasing to Krishna.
Might depend a little bit on the attitude there, I think. In Sundari Ropa's question, I mean, if you're feeling I'm offending the Vaishnavas, Krishna will be very merciful, because through the Vaishnavas, he'll correct us. You'll become purified. You'll want to be corrected. You'll be in the mood of, please chastise me, please correct me. If you're not in that mood, then don't worry. Krishna will kick you out of the association with devotees very soon.
Any last comment or question, Gopaswami Prabhu?
Just a little story about that. Traveling, I finally found a devotee who was disappeared sometime in Gargamuni.
The French Dargamani, right?
Huh?
A French devotee.
French devotee, yeah.
There's another guy.
And he disappeared. So I found him, and no phone, nothing.
And I came in his room, and he told me that, well, I try to be with the devotee, but I will go fancy. So he was very sincere, sincere and humble. I have to keep away just to keep connection, at least in my heart with them. And he was sincere. On his table, he did not have anything with Krishna. On his table there was some lemon seeds and pepper. And I said, what is that? He said, I don't have any more beads, I shine my rounds and I put one in.
Wow. Yeah.
So he begged me, please, give me mala, Anyway, it's an example, giving away sometimes. Simple little point, although you nicely express it, Maharaja, also Yadunandana, put it on the real platform of Vaishnava, behalf. Just on a very simple basis, for instance, Bhagavad Gita, Bhaktaram Yagatapasaram Sarvaloka Yashvaram Suridam Dharanam Gyadvamam Shantim Vishati. Krishna himself, he praised and he encouraged to find peace, and by this, when you know Krishna, Gyadvamam, you feel peaceful. That's real peace. And that's what we are, thinking when we chant Hare Krishna, not only for oneself. We feel, brotherhood with all living entities, all human beings. No, we feel this, by putting Krishna in the center, by putting the holy name everywhere, then we can bring this real peace of heart connection with Krishna, even unconsciously for these people. So in Bhagavad Gita, this is said, Krishna says, good, Mashucha, I will give you, serve me, and I will give you no more anxiety. Prabhupada in Mayapur, just serve Krishna with love, chant Hare Krishna without offense, and you will get, whatever you need materially, no problem, don't worry. So the peace for the devotee is something directly related to Krishna consciousness, more precisely to the holy name. This is just very simple verse that any aspiring devotee knows. It's not materialistic, karma kanda, pious activities. No, it's Krishna.
Interesting. Even King Preacher was performing karmakandi activities all over the world for the sake of teaching other people how to do it properly, so they could advance in Krishna consciousness in the future. Stepping stone towards Krishna consciousness. How to do it properly.
Thank you very much. I take the opportunity to thank Maharaj for inviting me to New Mayapur, and
Thank you for coming, Maharaj.
it was not in my plan, but then when Maharaj asked me, then okay, it must go. And it has been very nice, very short stay, but sometimes short is better than long. And I wish you a very successful book distribution marathon, that may you distribute many books. And you are leading the way in Southern Europe, and now we in Spain need to follow your footsteps in book distribution. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.
His Holiness Yadunandana Maharaj ki jai. Go Premanandi. Thank you very much, Maharaj. Come back again soon.
Yes, please, Maharaj.
Gopurnim's coming up soon. You're welcome.
Gaur Purnima, it's scheduled to be in Madrid. But we can do exchanges, like.
Yeah.
The big Swami goes to Spain, and the small one comes to France.
Yeah. The big-headed one goes to Spain.
Meaning, visiting.